Welcome to the Social Chameleon Show, which is our goal to help you learn, grow, and transform the person you want to become. Today's episode, we came across this awesome podcast on Freakonomics, why we choke under pressure and how not to. And we wanted to use that as a baseline for this episode. Why we choke, some of our thoughts and different things we picked up from the episode and kind of expand on them a little bit more. I'd like to start off with this little thing from Seneca. We suffer more in our imagination than in reality. And that's kind of part of what the episode was really kind of about.
The episode kind of goes into depth about a lot of things, though.
Yeah.
We have like all kinds of doctors and professionals interviewed on that thing. It's actually a really good podcast.
Yeah, they do a good job of researching and producing. It's a really good show. If you guys haven't checked it out, Freakonomics, I'll link it below for you guys. You guys can check that out. They got a lot of really good, well-curated, researched topics. They bring in a lot of professionals and stuff.
Yeah, but I do actually think that, though, like, we do suffer more in our imagination. I had a friend recently just come out of the blue and tell me about something, and it's just like, whoa, like, slow down. Like, all right, thank you for sharing, try to crack a joke here and there.
Right.
But on the real, I was like, ask them, like, why are you stressing out? Like, what's stressing you out? And they're kind of like, well, I'm just kind of thinking about what's going to happen after this and after that. And, I was like, well, what's different? You have the same issue or the same problem now. What's going to be different after you go to get that taken care of? And it's like, you don't really know what's going to happen.
Right.
It's just one of those things that you kind of think, right? And then your mind gets in the way of what is right now and what is really happening. And I think that's kind of similar. This wasn't about choking, but I think that it is similar to when we actually do choke. Like, we have all this stuff going on in our head, right? And then, like, what's actually happening, we're not focused on that. We're just focused about what the future may possibly be, something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I kind of wanted to start. I kind of started the way I did, because that seemed to me what was one of the core things of choking was, they were saying, I'm not sure which scientist or professional, what I was talking about. It was like when people start to think about what they're doing, like, oh, is my right hand leading too fast? Is my left hand, like, what am I doing? And that's when people start to overthink what they're doing, and they start to choke and start to kind of mess up.
Yeah, but I think that also comes down with practice. I'm a big fan of, maybe not practice makes perfect, but especially if we're talking about professional sports, which in the podcast they talked about a number of different professional sports, but like, you kind of do things and get them ingrained. I guess I call it muscle memory. I don't know if that's the best use of the word, but whatever.
Yeah, there's that.
Whatever, but I'm just saying, though, right? Like, that's the best, to me, that's the best explanation. You get into the practice of your swing or your pitch or your kick, right? Like, your body just kind of repeats that over and over, right? Just like Jordan's coach or whatever, right? Like, he's like, get on the free throw line and shoot. And he's like, just keep shooting. It's like, how, it doesn't matter. Just your body's going to get ingrained, all those movements and all those mechanical things, to the point where hopefully you don't have to sit there thinking about it. You just kind of, you grab the ball, you just kind of perform the motion like you practice.
Right. And then I'm sure we all can relate to that in the form of driving. Once you've been driving for quite a long time, then you can start to talk to your passengers or talk on the phone or really be listening to the radio. Hands-free now, hands-free. I'm not talking about texting and shit. I'm talking but you know what I'm saying? You get that, and then the next thing you know, you're like, how did I get here? Like, did I blow in these red lights and over? Well, what it really is it's called unconscious competence, where you've done the task so many times, your subconscious takes over because you're so competent at the task, and it just you easily go through it, and your working brain can do other tasks because your subconscious is taken over and it can just do the task. And I read a good book, Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, and he talks about Maybe many of you have heard about this, the 10,000 hours to get good at a task.
Yeah, I haven't really read that book, but I mean, is it just 10,000 hours? Is that like a landmark number, or is that
seems from what his research and what he did, it seems to be the magical number. When you hit 10,000 hours of deliberate practice at something, then you become proficient in that.
Let's see. I'm just gonna do the math real quick.
Yeah, and he goes on to say, practice isn't the thing that you do once you're good. It's what makes you good. So the Michael Jordans, the Kobe Bryants, the Bonds, these guys didn't get to the NBA and then start practicing. It was all the practice and the hours and the things that led up to them making the NBA or making the NFL or making MMA or whatever it is you do, getting to that 10,000 hour mark of repetitive.
For those of you that don't know, I just did the math right now. If you take 40 hours a week times 52 weeks in a year, that only gives you 2,000 hours.
Right.
That's like 5 years.
And that's if that was your full-time profession. Now think about a hobby or something. I mean, when I was in high school, we had practice was only maybe an hour or two a day, 5 days a week. It's only 5 hours a week. But that's how, these guys, think about the work that goes into being a professional, whatever it is, 2-3 hours of school or practice, everything for 11,
Yeah. Okay. But I just wanted to put that in perspective. Yeah. 10,000 hours. That, if you did it for your full-time job for 5 years, that would about 10,000 hours.
Yeah. So I think if you practice your hobby or your craft for 2 hours a day, every day for the whole year, that's only 100 hours, 104 hours, so it's going to, and that's what it takes. It takes many, many years, right? That's the things we don't see, right? We see all these things and these things are glorified. Like, oh, look at this overnight success, or look at this thing. And it's like, oh, look at so easily he got into the NFL or NBA or he just picked up programming so easily. But we don't see all the other things that went into learning that skill, getting that craft and honing those skills. And even to get to a level of mastery, maybe you're good, maybe you're better than the average. But until you start to get towards that 10,000 hour mark, seems like that's when you start to get to the mastery level. When somebody asks you, how do you have such a great backswing? They're like, I don't know. I just swing back. I don't understand.
Yeah. That's what was that? You said unconscious competence.
Unconscious competence, right?
Okay.
Or it just becomes ingrained in your subconscious and it just carries out the tasks for you.
Yeah, I kind of like that, like competence, because I mean that kind of takes it away from like the profession. I mean the athletic field, right? Because it could be accounting, right? Or it could be singing, or it could be anything.
Yeah, coding, web design, who knows, art, painting. I mean, being a firefighter, being a policeman.
Whatever.
Yeah, and I guess I should have had the there's 4 stages of how it goes. I just know of the last one, that unconscious competence. I think the other one is conscious competence, where you can think of it, but it's competent. I think that's the stage before that. I'll put a note to find all 4 stages.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that you talk about that. I mean, it's just in that goes, because I remember in the podcast they were talking about, I guess relating this topic to when you choke. It's like one of the specialists in the podcast said that, it just kind of depends on what the task is, right? If it's a task that requires a lot of high IQ, a lot of computations going on, or there's a lot of steps involved or a lot of thinking, you tend to choke more on those tasks versus something that requires less IQ, right? With like less computing. I mean, it's kind of like if you think of your brain as a computer, you have all this available memory. It's like, if you're using all that memory just on completing a task, it's gonna make you choke, or it has a higher percentage for you to choke. I don't know.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting when you're talking about higher IQ people. More susceptible to choking because they have more working memory?
Well, it's just because they said there's more computations involved, right?
Right.
Like you only have so much available memory. Like, I mean, not trying to compare humans to robots. I mean, Skynet's not here, but you know what I'm saying? Like, if you were to think of your brain as, a computer, right? If we're in the Matrix or whatever, like, you only have so much memory, right? This is Tyson, stock model. He comes with, 2 terabytes of RAM or what, you know what I mean? Or whatever, right? And like your brain only has so much available memory to do things. And if you're taking that time computing about the task that you actually have to do, that kind of takes away from your ability to, I guess, focus on the task at hand. It's kind of weird.
Yeah. And that's where, that's where that 10,000 hours, that deliberate practice, all that,
Right.
like I've said before, you don't raise to your expectations, you default to your level of training. So, if your level of training is high and you've gone through these scenarios, these situations, when shit hits the fan, the pressure's on, that's when you're going to be able to perform, because you already have that in your memory bank and within your muscle memory and all, whatever these different terms we want to use.
Right. It's like you can basically take a higher IQ task and turn it into a lower IQ task, right? And that would decrease your chance of. Yeah, that's something they didn't really get into in the podcast, but I kind of like that. It's like if you can take a higher IQ task, get that muscle memory, right, or get that unconscious competence to turn it into a low Q task.
Yeah.
You can definitely focus on that and choke a lot less by doing that.
Right. And I was thinking about, I think it was yesterday or whatever, when in preparation for this, I was trying to think about these things that we do. And I was thinking about how could I explain to somebody how to throw a football into a trash can at 23 yards? Like, I wouldn't even know how my brain even knows how to do that. You know what I mean? Like,
you just grab it and you throw it.
You just throw it and it goes in.
I don't know. For any of you who learn how to throw football, like, it's pretty hard. Like, you got to grip it the right way. You have to motion the ball the right way and then put the spin on it at the end so that it spirals correctly.
Right.
Like, there's a lot of skill involved with that in general. Yeah. And I mean, that just kind of comes with the territory. But yeah, you can't explain that to anybody because you went through the motion of learning it, and now you know it.
Yeah.
And it's such a low IQ thing. Like, you don't have to put that much, competency into it to recreate that task.
Yeah. Like, I was trying to teach Titus, I don't know, he's 4.5 feet tall and is trying to hold a heavy basketball. I was trying to teach him how to throw it into the hoop. And I'm like, just throw it up. And he's like throwing it, and he's like, and it just or go straight. And I'm like, throw it up. Like, and I had to stop, and I'm like, how can I teach you this? Because I don't even know how I do it. I just, and he's like, I'm like, here, just do this. And I'm like, and he's like, what? But it's funny to try and think back. How can I teach you how I learn? I don't even remember how I learned it, and how do I do it? And I'm not a great basketball shooter at all by any means, but I can probably get 30-40% of the shots in at on a good round, but it's like, but I get near the rim every single time. I'm like, how do I even do that? I don't even know how I do that, let alone how do I even teach it? I've never thought enough about it to teach it,
Yeah. And that just comes with all the things. And I mean, that's just kind of why, you have that 30% shot advantage, right? So you've accomplished the muscle memory to get that task to a lower IQ skill versus Titus, when he's doing it, like, he's got all these things that he has to focus on, like the stance and like how to throw it, how to flick his wrist. Like, he's thinking about so many moving parts. His chance of choking and missing that basket are a lot higher than yours.
Yeah, I mean, the whiffs are it's just so funny. But when I go to acro yoga, and a lot of that is still, even though I've been doing that for 2 years now, a lot of that is still new to me. And it's like, and that's what I find myself when I'm just severely fucking up, when I'm just having like a shit day. I'm like, I know so much about this now. I'm like, okay, wait, I'm thinking too much. I'm too in my head. I need to take a step back, and I need to take a breath, and especially when people are watching and the pressure's on, like, Tyson, you're so good. And I'm like, okay, wait, hold on. This is new to me. I got to take that step back, and I've got to say, okay, clear my head, let all that stuff soak in, let all the nuance, this, that, and another, put your foot here, your hand there, whatever, let that soak in, take a step away, kind of breathe for a second, let my brain stop thinking so much, and then walk back in. And most times sort of get the move down. But when that thinking stops and you kind of let your body just take over a little bit, that's when you seem to kind of get those things going.
Yeah, I guess, it's funny that you talk about like the pressure, because that's like, they talk about that also in the podcast too. It's like when the pressure is on, like now you have even, you know, more chance to choke because you have this pressure on you that was never there before. I know they talked about it in the podcast too, is like, you know, sometimes just you being there. I mean, you were talking about you and Titus.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you just being there, like you think you're helping, but you're putting more pressure because he's like, oh, my dad's watching. And like, and like he's choking too. You know what I mean? To try and get that skill down.
Yeah. It's like, look, Dad, watch me. And it's like, I just did 100 of those perfectly. And I show you, and it's just a big fluff.
Yeah. It's just like, you know, what was the other stuff they were talking about pressure? Like, were they talking about the home field advantage?
Right. And yeah, about like, about your family's there and your friends are there. Like, yeah, everybody talks about home field advantage. Like you're at the home crowd, but you're like, listen, like my parents are in the stands watching, like, and just the fact that they're there. Like I never thought about that, you know, like you got to wonder how many people, like when you see the, you know, the camera pan at a football game, something like, oh, look, you know, Billy's parents are here to watch. This is their first NFL game. And it's like, Billy has a horrible game. You're like, what happened? It's because his parents were here. Like, yeah, look, Dad, oh, I suck.
But another interesting thing, I guess, in that they mentioned about the home field advantage is that the judges, right, or the referees for the games have pressure to please the crowd. So, like, a lot of the calls really go towards the home field because, you know, the refs don't want to upset the crowd or whatever. They keep, you know, they gotta return back to their vehicles at the end of the game. No.
Yeah, but you got to wonder what happens after the game, right? Security and stuff. I remember many games we played in high school and stuff where we had to have quite a hefty security escort back to the buses because people weren't happy at the home field.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, just, you know, all joking aside though, it's like, it's interesting that, you know, when you have this applied pressure on you, psychologically that kind of messes you up. I don't know if that causes you to think more, if it causes you to think less. They didn't really cover that too much in the podcast, but
yeah, I think what it has to do when I was thinking about it was that kind of internal whatever pride or ego or whatever it is, or wanting to show your loved ones, like, look, you know, I'm here, I'm good, I'm performing, watch me get a sack, or watch me dunk the basketball, or watch me just kill this speech, you know. And it's like, and then you're just like, blah, 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 and you just fluff the whole thing, right? You're like, dang.
Yeah, it's kind of reminds me of the old Mike Tyson saying, you know, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. It's like,
I don't want to know what it's like to get punched in the mouth by Mike Tyson.
Yeah, me neither. But I'm just saying, though, it's like, yeah, I'm gonna do this good, and whoa, what just happened?
Yeah, 14 seconds into the fight, you get hit by Mike Tyson. You're like, huh? What was the plan? That wasn't it.
Get back, run away, block.
Why did I take this fight?
You know, but yeah, when that pressure's on, man, you feel it for sure.
And that's what, like, was she a writer or whatever it was she was saying? She's like, you know, and my mom and my dad, they come to all my speeches and they'll fly across all around the country. And she's like, I had to tell my assistant to stop giving my calendar to my mom. Every time my mom is in the audience, I just get all worked up and I get so nervous. And it's like, this is so funny, you know?
Yeah, but I mean, that's just it, though. I mean, I'm not saying anything about that writer or whatever, but I mean, that's just people in general. Like in life, most people, they don't want to practice that. They don't like being under pressure. I guess maybe as a professional, when your performance is rated, you know, especially in dollar amounts,
right?
You definitely don't want to be choking, but at the same time, like, you got to put that work in. Like, I think that's the reason why, you know, I guess professionals in general, it doesn't always have to be professional athletes, but doctors or surgeons or whoever it is, like, you can perform under that pressure because you're constantly under that pressure all the time. But
that's the thing, you've got to put yourself in that situation. You've got to put yourself under pressure, even if it's manufactured. It's a what is that, like, you do those, like, role playing, those walkthroughs. You know, I know when I was in the Army and we went through the combat medical training, we did like a battlefield simulation. They brought out all kinds of, like, percussion things to simulate bombs dropping and gunfire and all this stuff. They did all these things, and we had to, you know, do all these things under this simulated thing. And I mean, I don't know if you've ever like, stopped at an accident or something like that, and your heart just starts beating through your chest. And if you're not prepared for those high stress situations, you've never put yourself in those practice scenarios, you're just gonna clam up. Your brain is gonna shut down. Your frontal, your front of your brain starts, shutting down, and your immune system shuts down. All these different things are happening when your adrenaline kicks in, and all these cortisol and all these things. You're going like the autopilot mode. And if you're not prepared and you haven't practiced and trained for these worst case scenarios or these high pressure situations, last week I took my kids fishing, and I forget how we got on the subject, but my daughter was asking me, she's like, about this time I had saved somebody's life doing they were choking, and everybody was just standing around, and everybody just in awe. And I walked up and I'm like, what? They're Tyson, they're choking. I'm like, the Heimlich maneuver, everything okay? And I walked away, and I'm like, none of you people do anything. Like there was 15 people standing around, and they all did nothing. I mean, absolutely nothing.
I'm not saying you should be mad at them, but they just
no, absolutely not
been in that situation.
Yeah, right.
The same thing too, and when it comes down to, I guess I recently went to school to learn, to be in the medical profession, and in the school and then even when you take the test to get your license, like they put you in that situation on paper, you know what I mean? Like they describe the situation, the patient is this and that, and these are the signs and these are the symptoms, and then they sit there and they ask you, it's like, what do you do? And it's like, oh, you're like gonna pick it, and you're like, pick the answer, and it's like, physician does not agree. You're like, oh, dang. Oh. You got like three choices now. You pick it again. It's like, physician does not agree. You're like, ooh, like, there's that pressure of the test. I mean, to simulate real life, but when you get there in real life, like when you actually do your clinical rotations, and you see that patient, and like, it's like, whoa, like, you just kind of shut down. Like, it's just like the pressure is too great. Like, you just stop thinking. But I don't know, man. It's
and that, that's the thing, like your story and like my story, we've got to practice these situations. Even the simplest things of you're out on a walk, or you're out on a drive, and you see something happen. Your first thing has got to be, I'm not talking about necessarily going and learning first aid, even though I think that's a great thing to do, but your first thing's got to be like, oh shit, I just saw Timmy fall and break his leg. I don't know how to help you, but I can call 911. And even though my heart's beating out of my chest and I'm scared and I don't know what's going on and I'm worried, like, you've got to be able to train yourself to pick up your phone and call 911 or whatever it is. There's things you've got to practice these things in your life. Like, practice all shit going to hell and you losing your job, or you getting sick and you suddenly don't have food to eat, or you can just eat beans. All you can afford is beans and rice. Like, practice those things. Go out, practice sleeping on the floor. Practice, sleeping outside. Practice a day of homelessness. Go out in shitty clothes. Like, it's like, I know you're laughing, but people aren't prepared for this shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, most people live on the verge of just catastrophe. Most people don't have enough money saved, or, we all don't want to think about these things, but we've got to practice them for when the scenarios come up. You're going to be able to default to your training, because you ain't going to be able to have clear thought in that moment. If you went to work today and your job just went away and you're like, oh shit, I needed my paycheck next week to pay rent, you're going to be in such a flustered state. You're not going to know what it's like to do these things. But if you practice them, especially when times are good, you can up your default level to a lot higher place. And when the pressure's on, you can at least perform the most menial tasks. That could be the difference in saving somebody's life, or being able to have a clear thought to get another job, or whatever it is that you're.
Well, you gotta keep that in context, though. Like, you don't want to go out of the way to like over pressure yourself so that you like shut down and just can't function.
Right.
I mean, some of the things you're talking about, like people losing their job, not being able to pay rent. Like, there are people that cease to function. I mean, I've been there. Believe me, I've been there. It's like, I've had my hard times in life when I wasn't able to pay my bills and I wasn't able to do things. And like, you shut down. You get to that place, and you just kind of, you gotta find your way to get out of it and snap out of it and get back to basics. But just take that with a grain of salt. Like, we want you to practice these things, whatever it is, with this pressure on, so that when these times come, you can still perform while under pressure. But at the same time, I don't think we should put people into dramatic situations where they just kind of shut down.
Yeah, well, I want you guys to practice it, and it's fake and it's not real. And tomorrow life will go back to normal, whatever it is, you know.
Right.
Because someday you could be in that for real.
Yeah.
You don't know what it's like, and you don't know how to conduct yourself, and it's hard. Even in practicing, it's hard. You know, I'm not saying I'm good at it, I'm perfect or whatever. You know, I've been broke and I've been homeless, and it's not easy to think. No. It's not easy to come up with solutions and come up with things, and you start to get greedy, or you start to like, if I do this, it's not necessarily the greatest idea, but I can get out of the situation. And you start to make, maybe your judgment's a little off or whatever it is. But, now I just got off of a 5-day fast. I do these things, knowing life is good now, but at any moment something could happen. Anything could happen, and who knows, but I know what it's like to do these things. I know what it's like to be there. I'm not afraid to go back, and I know how to conduct myself when I get there. And that's what I want you guys to do. Simple things is, eat beans and rice for dinner tonight. You're not going to die, but you're going to know what it's like to be hungry. Like the first time I did a fast, that was the hardest part. It was like, all I could think about was eating.
Yeah.
And I couldn't even do anything for a week. All I could think about was eating.
Yeah. And
then, but after that, when I could go back to eating, I never thought about eating the same. Okay. Yeah. I could skip lunch, no big deal. Because I know what it's like to be that hungry. I know what it's like to be, even when I was homeless and stuff like that, and I didn't really have a lot of money, I never was at that level of hunger.
No, yeah.
And I never knew what it was like. Now, it's weird. It doesn't bother me anymore. It doesn't matter if I forgot to eat lunch and then I got to go do my workout. Big deal. I know what it's like to be hungry. I know I can perform. I know I can still athletically to be, and I'm not worried about being hungry. It's just, I know this is a long drawn on thing, but it's just an example of when these things come about and you're practicing them in the good times, you can handle.
Person punches you in the face. Like, it's like,
May not be the original plan, but you still got a plan.
Right. I mean, you've never felt that before, but as close as you can get to it. And it's like, when you're there, you can focus. You're not focused on what you're lacking or what you're missing.
Yeah, you're not like focusing on like, oh shit, that hurt. God damn, that hurt. Like, whoo. You're like, oh, yep, didn't expect that. Okay, all right, plan B. Shit.
All right, plan B. Yeah, but I mean, that's just part of it.
Yeah.
But I guess moving along, we've kind of been on that subject for a little bit. Some of the other things they talked about on the podcast were kind of like being in the zone.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about this earlier, like the muscle memory.
Right.
And it's just kind of like, even that sentence, like being in the zone, like that's kind of crazy as far as like being in the zone. Like, what does that actually mean? It's kind of weird. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever kind of felt that, where time just blows by and it doesn't feel like a long time, and you're just flowing and things are just coming so easily and you're just going through it. Next thing you know, you look up and like, oh shit, it's 5 o'clock. Like, what happened? Like, whoa, jeez. But that's that in the zone. You're that unconscious competence, you're swinging the golf club. You're not even thinking about it. You're like, next shot, grab the club, and just.
Yeah. And just going. Yeah. I kind of like that. I mean, it's just hard to explain, like for people who don't do sports or, they haven't, like, there's just times when you kind of get in the swing of things,
mm-hmm.
For lack of a better thing, where, peak performance is kind of like automated, for mm-hmm. lack of a better word.
Yep.
Like, and this is kind of comes as a combination of the first items we talked about. When you have practiced something for extreme amount of hours, and not only have you practiced them, but you practice them like under pressure,
mm-hmm.
like just kind of, you're so used to being at that spot. Like when it comes, you're just like, all right. And you just kind of roll with everything, roll with the punches and kind of go from there.
And that's the thing that deliberate practice. I don't know if it was in this podcast or another one with I think it was Olympic girl. She was talking about, she's like, the reason I made it to Olympics and the rest of the people I trained with didn't was because when we were going to the next thing and people were just kind of lollygagging around, I was doing a exercise. I was doing a training thing. Every moment I had in that gym, I was deliberately practicing something. She's like, we were all in the same building for the same amount of time, but I was so far ahead of everybody because I spent every moment there in some sort of practice. I thought that was very, very interesting.
Yeah. I mean, you're just doubling up on your hours, right?
Right.
somebody's over there taking a break, like you're for an hour while you're at the gym for an hour, like that's an hour more that they get.
Right.
To 1 hour, 2 hour, I don't know how much time that goes, but again, being in the zone, maybe she was just in the zone at the moment too, and that kind of builds confidence on itself, kind of like that when you're in the zone under pressure doing all the right things, like that kind of builds you confidence too.
Right, it does. And then
they talked about confidence as far as how I don't even think they talked about confidence.
I don't think they did either.
Just kind of strange, but I would definitely think that confidence would cause you to choke a lot less. But I mean, that's false confidence, but then,
Yeah, and there's something to that, faking it till you make it kind of thing, or even I'm sure, I don't know if I'm sure you've experienced that. I'm sure most of you out there, when you walk into a situation, whatever it is, either it's a work situation or it's an athletic situation, that doesn't matter. When you walk in there, you're like, oh, I know how to handle this. You feel good about yourself. You're like, I know the solution. I know the process. Like you walk in there like, oh man, I got this. And you feel good and you have that confidence. And the next time it's just going to build on from there. I've been in many situations where I walked in and I was like, I don't know about this. And then, and I walk in, oh, hey, I got this. Like, oh man, I'm going to smash all of you people. You can't compete with where I'm at, but you get that feeling and then all those nerves kind of go away and that stuff goes away and you're like, oh, I know how to do this. I can just ride this and I can just perform without thinking about it.
Yeah. No, I definitely think confidence kind of builds on that. I know now I'm looking over our notes. I was like, I don't think they talked about confidence and how it builds. But
no, yeah, that's a good, and that's why, part of why we wanted to kind of talk about this a little bit is, there's some good things that they talked about and some other things I think being a high level overview conceptual show, I think they didn't have the ability to dive down in.
They had so many experts and stuff on there that was kind of getting on there. But yeah, I guess, and with that, moving on to the next thing. But I also like how they talked about like professionals can make adjustments like on the fly.
Mm-hmm.
Like they kind of, again, I don't know if that kind of comes from, I'm pretty sure it just comes from the hours of practice and practice under pressure. Mm-hmm. But you know what I mean? Like you said, when you're in acro yoga, you were making mistakes. It's like, okay, I'm making mistakes. You gotta walk away, take a breather real quick, right? Whatever habits or rituals you have to get you out of that funk. Mm-hmm. Like if you're gonna perform at the peak level, right? Like the top, say 90% of the world, like, you have to be able to notice, okay, I'm choking right now. I'm not on game. You have to recognize what you're doing and kind of just make adjustments. Yeah, kind of like that.
Yeah, exactly. And he was talking about like the golf, and it was funny. I was like, when I played sports, I like to jab and poke and get people off their game because it's so easy to rattle somebody. But it was funny. When he was talking, I was like, you want to mess with somebody's golf game? Ask him, hey, that was a great shot. What'd you do with your elbow? And I was like, the guys would be like, I don't know what I did with my elbow. And he's going to start thinking about it.
Yeah.
That's just like funny. I was like, when I played basketball, I used to like tug on people's shorts. I used to like give them little pokes. I played football. I did the same thing. I used to like to, mess with people and stuff because it rattles them and gets them off their game. That's something my dad had taught me, and I never understood it until later on in life, like what I was actually doing to people. And I don't know if you guys remember Dennis Rodman. That was the beauty of his game, was getting in people's heads and getting them flustered. And that's what he got paid a lot of money for. Maybe he wasn't the greatest basketball player, but he was great at getting in your head.
Yeah.
But yeah, what are some other good points that we liked from this here?
I guess kind of along the same lines, maybe, what is this? I got to read this correctly. It's like situations that cause you to attend in a way not normal to you is what breaks you down. I was like, oof, that's a wordy quotation there. I should have summed that up, but just let me repeat that again for you, because I didn't really hear it. I said it, but I didn't really hear it. Situations that cause you to attend in a way not normal to you is what breaks you down. So like that's kind of has to do with why you choke, right? Like again, we're talking about getting your practice in, getting your practice under the right situations, right? Under the right pressure, getting in the zone. Mm-hmm. But all of a sudden when you come to this situation that's not normal to you, that's kind of when things go astray. That's kind of when you get flustered. That's kind of when you start breaking down. And that's kind of the more things happen to you that you're not used to, then that's kind of what causes you to choke. You know?
Yeah. And that's why I like to talk about a lot in here. I'm sure you guys heard me say it a lot, with getting comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yep.
You know, so if you can get into these situations like this is saying, where this isn't normal, I don't know what it's like. I've never been in this room. I've never been in, you know, in front of these people or these clients or whatever it is you're doing. You're like, that's okay. I've been in enough of these types of situations.
Right.
I've put myself out there enough that I'm not going to be my best version, but I'm not going to choke right now because I know how to be comfortable in this uncomfortable situation.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah, it's like you know, hopefully through the hours of practice that you get, being under pressure, you know, hopefully all of that you'll constantly be in a state that, well, maybe not constantly, but you'll at least be introduced to a state of being uncomfortable, learning how to figure out the situation.
Right.
And then from there, you can kind of make it comfortable again. And you just make it comfortable enough to where you put a new type of pressure on, or come into a new type of experience where you're uncomfortable again. And it's like, you know, just again, being in that uncomfortable state itself and just being comfortable there, knowing that, you know, it's not the end of the world, knowing that, you know, I've gotten out of, you know, all these situations before, I'm going to make it out of this one. Even though I don't even have the answer, I don't know how to do it. Like all of those things are kind of what helps you get, you know, to the point where choking becomes less, you know, where you're not at those low performance levels all the time. It's like you can bring yourself out of it, come back to your peak performance. You know?
And that's the thing they're talking about too. The more you choke, the less you will choke. And it's like funny, right? Like the more you fuck up, the less you will fuck up. It's like, it's so cool how that works.
Yeah, I definitely think so. But it's just, again, you know, and that just kind of comes from any type of practice. Like you got to know the bad things that you're doing, good things that you're doing, and that whole experience kind of adds to your knowledge base.
And that's when you also need to have that honest reflection and say, man, oh, that didn't go good. Like, and it's like not, oh, it's the ref's fault. Oh, it's my boss's fault. Oh, it's Timmy's fault. Like, maybe all of those are true. That's great. There's nothing you can do about that. But go and say, okay, why did I fuck up? Why did I choke? What happened here? How can I not choke again? Well, first of all, I've been it. I know how it's going to feel next time. I can be comfortable in the opposing team stadium. You know, all these different things you can come up with and give yourself that honest after action review and say, okay, that was shitty. Ain't going to happen again, because I'm going to take this to heart and say, no, never again. I'm going to practice. I'm going to put myself here. And I know what it's like to be there now. So that's one under the belt, you know?
And it's so hard to keep your concentration when you're in that mind frame.
Yeah.
You know? As that saying go, like, you got to focus on what you want, not what you don't want.
Yep.
You know, so many times when people are choking under the pressure, all they're thinking about is, oh, I messed up so bad, you know, all of this. And it's like, oh, that didn't go the way I planned it. Like, oh, I did all of these things wrong. Like, you got to be careful about where your mind is creeping when that sets in, because if your mind is focusing on all the wrong things that you're doing, you're going to continue to do those wrong things. I know it's kind of ironic, but
it's just funny. You know, you don't, I think, oh, I don't want to have this bill. I don't want to have this credit card. I don't want to do this. It's like, I don't want. Guess what you're going to get? Exactly that. That's all you're going to see. That's all you're going to focus on, you know? You got to understand it works the opposite way.
I know it sounds like a mind trick or whatever, and it kind of is, but, you know, instead of focusing on what you don't like if you don't want to get into debt again, or you want to get out of it, you know what I mean? Like, you should focus on, I want to get out of debt. And then, you know, but try not to use the word debt, because sometimes even when you have like, I want to get out of debt, it still brings your mind back to the fact that you're in debt. You know, like, you got to use different words. You got to have different things like, oh, I want to make more money, or I want to save more money. I want to invest more money. I want to get a better return on my investment this year. I mean, you got to change the way you think about things and how your mind perceives it.
Yeah. Words are powerful. The words you tell yourself, the words you say out loud, they're very, very powerful. And they can have different meanings. They can evoke different feelings and stuff. just as Ransom was saying. So be careful with the words you choose.
Yeah, sure. I guess we're getting towards the end of our notes here, but I kind of like that story about that golfer. What was his name? Sorry, I can't pronounce it for the life of me.
Jean Van Dijsselbode, I don't know. It's a French guy. And that's kind of the basis of the podcast. Was that French golfer. I'm sorry, I murdered his name. Jean Van. I'll link it to you for you guys. But Jean, yeah, it was like the most. It's said to be the most famous choke ever of all time. I think it was a 99. He had a 3-shot lead in golf, and he was on the final hole with a 3-shot lead. He's like, you can just jack this up as long as you get,
double bogey, I think, right?
Yeah, it's like a double. As long as you get double bogey, you win. And the odds of him not winning was so low. They had already engraved the trophy with his name on it.
Oh,
as he walked up to the 18th hole, they had already engraved his name on the trophy.
There's no way he's gonna mess this.
No way you can mess this up. You can hit, 6 shitty shots and you still win. Like,
yeah. No
way. So he gets up to the and then that was kind of the ironic part of the whole thing. He hits his tee shot. Boom, it's off onto the 17th tee. And then everybody's like, oh, lucky break. And that's kind of the thing he thought, like, oh, wow, it's a lucky break. You know? And he kept hitting these shots, and it's like, and he hit the next shot, and it hits the grandstands, and it bounces back. Like, oh, man, lucky shot there. But it's all these lucky shots that got him into the point of, you know what, I can make this. Like, I can do this thing. And instead of, they said, the expert was saying, if that tee shot or that second shot would have went somewhere crazy, he would have been able to bring himself back in and say, okay, whatever I'm doing is going to stop. But he kept getting these lucky breaks. And every lucky break led to another unlucky break, but it just kept compounding on itself. Yeah. And then he wound up getting 3 shots over. He wound up tying a 3-way tie at the end of that hole and going into a playoff and then losing. Like the most famous second place finish of all time. Is like,
I think it was funny because they were talking about like when he actually made the putt,
the
tie.
Yeah, he thought he won.
Everybody. Well, I don't know if he thought that, because in the interview he said that he knew he didn't.
Yeah.
He said in the interview, but you know what I mean, like it just to keep your composure like that. But he was like, and like he made it seem like he had won.
Yeah. When I watched the video, I guess knowing the whole story, what I saw out of him was, fuck, I got out of that. Like, Jesus Christ, that was like the worst hole of my life. That's the look I got from him.
I didn't lose. He said, at least with this score, I will tie. I didn't win, but I will tie with everybody else. And I think he went on, right? And he didn't win.
He did not win. Yeah. I believe he won second place.
But everybody remembered him, right?
Yes.
For the part that he didn't win, which is kind of weird.
Yes. Yeah. It's like they always say, nobody remembers second place. This is one of those instances where nobody remembers first place.
Yeah. Nobody remembers who won. They all just remember how he was ahead so far. Yeah. He choked it up, and then he lost it when he got into the tie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then he wound up becoming sort of famous for that and all that. But it was interesting how they were saying if he wouldn't have got all these little lucky breaks, he would have been able to take a step back and reevaluate what he was doing, because he kept taking these risky things. It's like, I got lucky, I'm going to chance it again. And I got lucky, I'm going to chance it again. And that's what led to his demise.
Yeah, I think he even said, like, in the interview or something like that, he's like, disaster happens when 2, 3, or 4 things that are unpredicted in a row. Like,
right, compound.
Yeah, it's just kind of like, like you said, like the first 2, 3 shots was like, okay, that was a bad decision, but it ended kind of in a good way.
Right, it worked out for me. Okay, good. I'm going to do that again.
Yeah.
And you don't see the result of those 2, 3 things that stacked on each other. You don't see that result until you fall over the cliff.
Yeah, for sure. Some of the other things I think they talked about in the interview is kind of like, it's easy to win with grace and it's hard to lose with grace. I think especially for him, being so far ahead, being so far ahead and then actually tying, like he kind of handled that pretty well. He made like he won. But even after that, when he lost, like, he's like, he wasn't a sore loser. He didn't blame other people for what happened and all that kind of stuff.
And that's what they were saying too. That's what kind of sort of made him famous, was the graciousness he had when he lost after fluffing the win.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's hard. We all know it's like to lose, and it sucks. It's hard to walk over there and shake the guy's hand and say, good game. I'm better than you, but today wasn't my day. Like, that's hard. That's really hard.
Nah, that is.
That's super hard. But it goes into practicing that stuff, walking over and shaking people's hands and just saying, today wasn't my day. It was your day. And this will never happen again, at least from this angle. And I'm going to work on that.
Yeah. So I all in all, I think it was a really good podcast. And I think that part too at the end, I mean, they definitely talk about it a lot more than we did, but
yes,
it's kind of cool how they summed it all up and how they actually had the interview with the guy. I mean, it was kind of hard to hear, but they have the transcript on their website too.
And like I said, I'll link to the podcast. I recommend you guys listen to it. Maybe even subscribing to their podcast. I think it's a really good podcast. They do a really good job of producing and researching it, and there's a lot of great, high level things you can learn from that.
Cool. So,
anything else? That's a good podcast. Anything else you want to touch on about that? Choking?
Nah, man. I think I'm good with that.
That's great. And if you want to learn a little bit more about maybe how not to choke as a leader, how to keep your ego in check, how to overcome obstacles, because the obstacle is the way, I would get into this month's giveaway. Sure. It's a leadership pack is what I call it. It's Jocko Willink's new book, The Dichotomy of Leadership, and also his previous book, Extreme Ownership, as well as Ryan Holiday's Ego is the Enemy and The Obstacle is the Way. All 4 of those books, I'm going to give out to you one lucky winner. And this is the last giveaway for the year. For November, December, we're going to do Give Back. And I'd like you all to participate in that as well. I'll have more information about the different charities and events I'm part of that I will be wanting you guys to help in. But to get into this giveaway, head over to thesocialchameleon.show/pick-me. Get yourself this leadership pack. End this year on a high note. Get set for 2019. It's around the corner. It's going to come here faster than you guys think. Head into that year choking less as a leader, or being able to step up and become a leader, whatever you're up to, whenever you're doing. These are 4 great fundamental books that will teach you how to stop blaming other people, understand what ego is like, understand what these obstacles are and how to overcome them, and all this great stuff.
Cool.
And then, like I said, I'll link the videos and the podcast and all the resources, and I'll go ahead and get those the different levels of competence for you guys, so you guys can understand all 4 levels of those different competence things. I'll have all those in the show notes at thesocialchameleon.show.
All right.
And
you got a challenge?
I got a challenge. This week's challenge.
All right.
You guys, deliberate practice.
Ooh.
Deliberate practice. That means when you're doing something, you're deliberately going through each motion, not half-assing it. Especially if you have a higher level of competence, those lower level tasks that maybe you've got really good at, they become unconscious. Make sure you're going through each step. Deliberate practice. Okay? Wow. Get unfamiliar with things. Get in unfamiliar situations. Get comfortable being uncomfortable. Practice handling pressure. Get a friend or get into some type of role play thing. Get loud music, whatever it is that you need to practice for. Get in that mindset of getting the stakes up, getting the pressure on. Sometimes just getting your heart rate up and then trying to do a task will simulate that type of pressure situation. Do a bunch of push-ups or some jumping jacks, some squats, get your heart rate going, get your breath up, get that feeling of your adrenaline going, and then practice being under pressure. Whatever it is you're doing, whether it's your hobby, whether it's your career, whether it's studying, it doesn't matter. Whatever it is, get out there, deliberate practice, get uncomfortable, get unfamiliar situations, and practice under pressure.
All right. Awesome.
And so close this out with, sum this up.
All right. So summing it up in our final thoughts, you just have to remember is that practice makes progress, right? This program or this particular episode is about not choking under pressure. So if practice makes progress, guess what you got to do? You have to choke under pressure, right? Over and over and over again. Yeah. Learn to be comfortable in that right? Learn to be in the eye of the storm, so to speak, and know that everything is not following around you. Know how to get your mind right when that time comes. And then from there, you can pull yourself out. And that's kind of how you can not choke under pressure.
And if you know somebody that maybe does some choking a little too often, or maybe they're becoming new to the world of adulting, and you want to help them not choke and at least understand what it's like to have the skills and the knowledge to start to practice these things, share this with them. Let them know what we're up to, and you enjoyed it. Share it with, at least try to share it with at least 2 other people that you think this could help. All week long, you guys can connect with us on all the social media platforms at thesocialchameleon.show, as well as subscribing on YouTube and your favorite podcast app. And if you're listening to the podcast version or even on YouTube and stuff like that, you guys can leave a review. It really does help our show reach more amazing people like you. And for links to everything we've talked about here and past episodes, you guys can visit thesocialchameleon.show. And until next time, keep learning, growing, and transforming into the person you want to become.